Hello, everybody. This is kind of a small introduction into Strategic Battleforce. I normally have posted a couple of posts on a couple of the Facebook pages about Strategic Battleforce. And the questions were really about what is it exactly, and how does it work. So I'll give you kind of a brief, kind of an introduction and a little bit of a demo of what it is. So Strategic Battleforce, or SBF, is a game system found within the Interstellar Operations Battleforce book. You may have seen this in the store and online. You may have even grabbed it. I know for myself, when I was starting off with Battletech during the pandemic, I saw the book and I thought, okay, this looks really advanced. I don't think I'm there yet to actually look through it. Honestly, it was a little intimidating because it was talking about a lot of gaming concepts and mechanics while I was still trying to learn just Battletech and even Alpha Strike. So over the past couple of years, I've kind of slowly been getting back into this book that I have. So what Strategic Battle Force is, it abstracts units from Total Warfare Battletech, similar to how Alpha Strike does it. So it's meant for an ease and speed of play, allowing the players to field basically entire battalions and even regiments on a battlefield, potentially spanning kilometers in scope, which is really neat. I think, when you play Battletech or Alpha Strike, you're really playing, multiple lances, or even one lance per, lance versus lance, star versus star, or level twos, depending on what your faction is. But it's generally smaller in scope, and it's very, it's much smaller. In BattleTech, you're seeing, why your mech is taking the damage it does, and from which weapons it received it from, and vice versa with what you're attacking. So Strategic Battle Force is kind of a layer above that. So you're more in the kind of like in the general's command seat, as you're giving orders to multiple battalions, basically, or regiments. So I think that's kind of neat. That may not be for everybody, but as the more I was reading it, I was finding out that's what Strategic Battle Force is. So while playing Strategic Battle Force does not strictly require the use of other Battletech rules, you're kind of assumed to know the basics of Total Warfare and either Battleforce. Battleforce is another gaming system. I'll talk about that later. Or Alpha Strike. So Alpha Strike is noted to be directly based on the Battleforce rules. Again, that's something different from Strategic Battle Force. And Strategic Battle Force's enhancements will resemble the rules found in Alpha Strike. So they're very closely related as far as how, the units in Strategic Battle Force are based off of Alpha Strike units. So in Interstellar Operations Battle Force, it, like I said, allows a player to stage up the final level of play where they can assume the roles of kind of like a general. So kind of to give you a better idea of what that scale looks like for Strategic Battle Force, we're going to talk about just a few concepts and features of the gaming system. So the scale is that Strategic Battle Force represents warfare on a grander scale, right? It is so when you're basically using the same types of maps in BattleTech. So one hex on the map for Strategic Battle Force represents half a kilometer. So if you think about it, your map sheet is actually covering several kilometers. You're looking at a much bigger battlefield. The elevated hexes represent 30 meters each, and each turn in Strategic Battleforce constitutes about roughly 3 minutes of game time. And the force structure for Strategic Battleforce represents a formation. So as you're playing, if you're playing Battletech or Alpha Strike, your unit is represented by your miniature. It's pretty straightforward as to what that is. In Strategic Battleforce, they're represented typically by counters. So you have also maybe saw in the game store or online, there's Battleforce tokens, counter tokens that you can purchase. Again, when I saw those, I was like, I don't know what that is exactly. And I know, reading through the description, I knew it was tied into Interstellar Operations Manual. Again, it was just another scale I wasn't too familiar with, didn't want to get into just quite yet. So the token represents a formation. So what is a formation? So formations are built from units. A unit is a individual. Well, I'll go backwards here. So you have a unit, you have an element which consists of a battle mech, a vehicle, or a fighter. So the terminology in Strategic Battleforce is a little different. So you start off with your element. From there, you have, when you build up a lance or a star or a level 2, you have your unit. And then when you have a group of units, depending on the faction, then you'll have multiple units that equal a formation. And the formation is your counter token that's on the map. So you have a better idea that you're having probably under maybe 20, 20 is the maximum, but 20 battle mechs at most in a formation. And then if you're playing on, with multiple formations, that's your entire force, your battle force, basically, strategic battle force. So units are typically sized as like I said, a lance, a level 2, or a star. A formation isn't, again, no more than 20 elements. So that's the scale of what a token is. And the components for Strategic Battle Force, they typically consist of the map, your counters. You can use miniatures, although there's probably a reason why you don't want to do that. I'll get into that later. And you also have record sheets to track the information of those formations. The stats are kind of similar to Alpha Strike because, again, Strategic Battle Force uses the same information from Alpha Strike. And formation and unit stats are abstracted from that. So a sheet will consist of all of your formations, and each formation will include its size, its movement, its TMM, its target movement modifier, armor, the damage it inflicts at short, medium, and long range. And then there are a few other stats, formation stats, that include your tactics, your morale, skill. Skill is also shared with Alpha Strike, and also the point value. But I'll get into those a little bit later. So you can see that the formation stats are a little more. There are a few more, and they come into play as you're playing the game. And there's also some special abilities that count as well. So the gameplay of Strategic Battle Force consists of a series of turns, and each with several phases performed in order. Very similar to what you'd see with a regular Battletech or Alpha Strike game. The phases include the initiative phase, so you're rolling for dice to see who has initiative. You have a movement phase, you have the combat phase, and then you have the end phase. The initiative phase is determined by rolling your 2d6 with the winner acting, before having the initiative. Movement phase is formations moving across the map. You're taking turns the same way that you would in Battletech. So it's you move one formation, your opponent moves theirs, and back and forth until all movement is done. And combat occurs the same way in its combat phase. So, and when opposing formations occupy or move into the same hex, that's when the actual fighting occurs. So there is no range, so to speak, of like you would see in a Battletech Alpha Strike map setting. The fighting occurs when when a friendly formation and an opposing formation meet up in the same hex. And when that happens, they roll for what's called an engagement control to see who has the upper hand in determining what the range should be. So if you have a formation that gets the upper hand, you can determine whether the combat will occur at short range on its stats, medium range, or long range. And when you look at your sheet, your formation sheet, you can see where that formation does better. Some of them do better at short range, some at medium range, or some at long range. But if you get that engagement control, you get to dictate what that range is. So that's kind of like a whoever has the better role of a tactics maneuver role, and again, I'll talk about some of these specifics in a little bit. That formation has the tactical upper hand. It's kind of a neat way of, kind of playing out what that abstract combat's going to look like within that specific hex. The end phase resolves all of the damage effects. Sometimes you're going to have to do morale checks if a formation takes too much damage, or if certain conditions apply, you have to roll for their morale. And their morale may dictate that they have to withdraw. They may have to withdraw from that hex. They may have to retreat. There's even conditions of surrendering. There's even advanced rules where if you have a leading formation, kind of like your headquarters formation, if you lose that formation, your whole army can become enraged, and it actually can give you a bonus. So, just like Alpha Strike and Battletech, strategic classic Battletech, the interstellar operations for strategic Battleforce has advanced rules as well. So you can play with some basic gameplay, or you can play with pick and choose which advanced ones you want. And basically, in essence, so strategic Battleforce provides a system to simulate large-scale military operations in the Battletech universe, allowing players to command, your large forces and represent conflicts that, that cover considerable, regions of maybe a planet, things like that. So it's really up to you how you want to approach it. So a formation in Strategic Battleforce is your formation sheet. That's the closest thing I can think of it as is kind of like your Alpha Strike card. It's going to have all your stats. It's going to have your armor, bubbles. It actually doesn't have bubbles. It just gives you a number. But there's a little more information than what you would see in a regular Alpha Strike card. Probably not as much as a classic Battletech mech sheet, though. So it's kind of in between. So I'll touch off of what those stats are of what you're going to see. So on your formation on your formation sheet, you're going to have multiple formations because you can have multiple counters on the map. But each formation group is going to have the type of unit. So if you have kind of a mix of battle mechs that are, they're going to be battle mechs. If you have battle armor, it's going to be battle armor. So that's the type of unit that you're going to have listed for your formation. Next is the size of that formation. So it's an abstraction representing the formation's physical size on the battlefield. And this is the average size of all the units that make up that formation. And there's a kind of basically a formula for getting that averaging. Next is your movement. So that's the formation's available movement points. This value is based on the average movement of all of the units within the formation. So it's pretty straightforward too. So you've got an average of it. You also have the jump value. This is an abstract stat representing the jump capability within the formation. And next, there's another movement value, and it's actually called transport move. I haven't used this yet because this is a little more advanced. So it represents the formation's movement speed when slower elements or units are being transported by others within the formation. So if you have kind of an advanced scenario where you have to transport, it may slow you down. Another stat is the TMM, the target movement modifier, also very much like Alpha Strike. So this modifies the 2-hit chance of attacks made against the units within the formation. And it's another averaging of the TMM of all the units in the formation, all of the mechs, if that's what you're using, all of the mechs in the formation. And then you also have skill. That's another formation average. You're grabbing everybody's skills and averaging it out. So this serves as the base number for the attack rolls by the formation and is used to determine actually the tactics and the morale values, which I'll talk about. It's the average skill value of each unit in the formation, rounded normally. So you have two other stats they may be new to you because they're not used in Alpha Strike. So you have tactics. So this is an ability representing a combination of the formation's skill and its speed. And this is what's used to determine the engagement control, the range in combat, and how damage is distributed among its units. So the formation's tactics value is based on its movement, its skill, and it can be modified by like a mobile headquarters rating. Again, that's something a little more advanced, but for the most part, your tactics value is dictated by your movement and your skill. And then you have morale. So there'll be instances where you have to do morale checks. A unit may have taken too much damage after combat for the turn, and it's got to do a morale check. So the morale is basically it's just the formation skill value plus 3. Pretty simple. And then overall, the formation has a point value, similar to Alpha Strike. So again, all of this information you can see here, it's listed on the formation sheet. Okay. And you're probably wondering, well, how the heck do you come up with this formation sheet? It's a building block of all of the forces you put together. I'm kind of laughing a little bit because you start off with the mechs you want and the lance type that you want to build. And then once you have that lance, you have multiple lances. So if you're doing Inner Sphere, you would have 3 lances. In strategic Battleforce terms, a lance is a unit. So you have 3 units to 1 formation. So you're doing a little bit of math to kind of come up with all of this information, which can be, I'll admit, it was a little tedious but just doing it by hand. But then I did a little bit of digging. You actually can have a program. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. It's been around a long time. It's called MegaMek. So in MegaMek, you can create all these lances or stars or level twos if you're Comstar. You can create all these lances, and then you build your formation. And what MegaMek does is that it will export the stats, all the stats that I've mentioned here, into a MegaMek from MegaMek for your formation sheet. Really quick, really, you don't have to do any calculations on your own. It just generates all of it for you. Really neat. It was a really helpful way of going about this. I was actually surprised to find this in MegaMek because I don't see any other use for it in MegaMek. But it was nice of them to put this in because now I can generate all the formations I want, starting with deciding which mechs are going to be part of what lance, and yeah, it just makes it a lot easier.
Okay, so I'm going to use MegaMek to show you how to quickly make a formation. Again, this portion you don't need to do this. I just used it because it quickly calculated everything that I wanted to make a formation unit, and then I transfer it onto like a formation sheet for to play strategic Battleforce. So what you're going to do is right from the get-go with MegaMek, and if you're familiar with this, you kind of know what to do. If you're not familiar with it, um, it's kind of straightforward. So you start MegaMek after you've installed MegaMek. Um, so I'm going to go up here, click Add a Combat Unit. I'm going to click Mech because I want Mechs as part of my formation. I'll just kind of go down the list here. Let's say I want an archer, an awesome, behemoth, and commando. Okay, so you can see it populating here. These are my four mechs that are going to be part of an inner sphere formation. So this first group is a lance, but again, I want to use the strategic battle force terminology. So one mech or tank or infantry or whatever, one thing here is an element. When I group them all together, even though it's technically a lance, in strategic battle force, they're going to be known as a unit. Okay, so this will be unit alpha. Okay, if I click up here to force view, I'll see I've got alpha here. Okay, double click and you can see the drop down of them all. I'm going to add another unit or another lance, and it will be some armies, right? So who doesn't love those guys? I'll add four of them. One, two, three, four. I'm going to group them, right click, and create from force. This will be Bravo. Okay, so I'll go to force view. You'll see now I have the two units, Alpha and have Bravo. I need one more for inner sphere. I need one more unit. I need one more lance. So it'll be another grouping of whatever. Okay, so I'll just kind of go down the list of whatever makes, you know, whatever I want. So Griffin, a hunchback, a longbow, and a Mackie, an old Mackie. Okay, so I'll group these four. Right click, force, create from force. This will be Charlie. That'll be the third unit or the third lance. Okay, so here they are. In force view, I can see what they are. This is a nice little setup too, so you can kind of see the structure of your organization, of your forces. So what I'll do is from here, I'm going to right click, I'll go to force, add empty force. This will be, I'll call it formation one. This will be my one token on the counter, my one counter token that will be on the map that that will represent this group, this formation. Okay, so here's formation. I'm just gonna click and drag them in here. So Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. Okay, I'll double click. I can see I've got the three units, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. Now what I'm going to do, my formation's set, and MegaMek now recognizes that this is a formation that will that I can now convert to a strategic battle force formation. So I'll click on that. And here are my stats for that entire group of mechs, broken up into Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. They have the stats that I had mentioned before. Okay, so you have the type of mech, that says battle mech, their sizes. So Alpha is a 3, that's a medium. No, sorry, heavy. Bravo is light because it consists of all of those Urbies, and Charlie is also heavy. Okay, so you can see their movement values here. For the entire formation, this purple row, that's when I'm moving the counter itself. So it has a movement value of 3, has a jump value of 1, has a transportation movement of 3, has a TMM of 1. The tactics has a value of 8, and the morale is 8. The skill is 5. Remember, morale is always 5 plus 3, which is why it's 8. The point value of this formation is 106. And what it did was it kind of grouped their special skills. So I have indirect fire 2 and search. The When I'm actually using this formation sheet, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all these stats and I can either print them out, and see there's even a print option, or I can write them down in my formation sheet for Strategic Battle Force. Uh, so what I would do is write down all of these stats, the stats for Alpha, for Bravo, and Charlie. The reason why you want Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie stats is because it has their armor. So when they start taking damage, there's a rule to determine which lance or which unit will start taking the damage. You can see here for the damage of each of these lances, there's a 4/4/2 for, let's say, for Alpha. That's the short, medium, and long range damage for that particular unit. So if that unit is attacking, because all of these units will get to attack. It's not just the formation attacking with one damage value. You are actually pulling the damage values depending on the range that's happening in the formation battle of that hex. So if I'm rolling, let's again, I'll what I'll kind of go back to the engagement control. So whoever has the engagement control, let's say this formation has that control. So I'm looking at all of them and I'm thinking, okay, well, you know what? I think this formation is going to do much better at short range than it would at medium or long range. Because Alpha would be able to do 4 damage, Bravo does 3, Charlie does 4. Uh, there may be instances where maybe the medium range is better or the long range is better. But you get a picture of exactly what is going on here. So keep this in mind because when I do the example of play, I'll refer to these damage values and these armor damages too, or these armor values, because this is what's going to you start marking off and changing the value as they start taking damage. So anyways, this kind of gives you a better visual sense of what a formation looks like, and how to quickly generate one using MegaMek, rather than on pen and paper, which you can do. It just takes a little bit longer. Okay, so one final note that you can do with MegaMek is if you're excessively lazy, like I can be at times, you can just create the whole army in just one go. So if I go to create random army, maybe I want to make a whole regiment worth, right? Let me go back if you're not familiar. You click here, create random army. Um, let's say the faction will be, well, let's say, I'm just kind of picking out of the Federated Sons, right? The unit type will be, there'll be Mechs, the equipment rating is C. Won't include any support forces, but you can. I'll just keep it clean, full of just mechs. Uh, and I'm going to go with, again, you can generate either a lance, a company, a battalion, or a regiment, but I want a full regiment. I want multiple counters in order to play strategic battle force. Okay, so I've picked a regiment. The target weight, let's keep it, it's going to be a heavy regiment of mechs. The skill, I'll keep them regular. Okay, so they're going to be a regular, heavy regiment, Federated Suns, year roughly in about 3150. Okay, so I'm going to click generate. Um, so it's generated a force here, and I'm going to click right click, and I'm going to add to the game. So you kind of see a list of everything that I've generated, but you'll see even more. So these are all the mechs, and it's going to give me the breakdown. So there's a first battalion, even gives you who the commanding officer is for each of those battalions, the commanding officer of all the companies. Uh, yeah, if you're familiar with like a military breakdown of a regiment, this is what it would look like. So I'll click OK. So there's my regiment, my first battalion, my second battalion, my third battalion. Again, a battalion is not a formation because if I try to convert it, it won't work. What I'll have to do is click on each of these guys. So the company is what will be your formation counter when you play the game, Strategic Battle Force. So I'll convert to Strategic Battle Force formation. Here are the stats for that one. You can copy this to the clipboard or you can print it. If you print it, it will give you the actual sheet of what that looks like. So for our example, I'm only going to print the first three for our example when I actually show you on the table what that looks like for the three counters. Again, it's going to be a very small engagement. It's just going to be three formations on three formations. A typical scenario may consist of more than that, maybe 10 on 10 or something like that. But I'm going to print these, each of these sheets, so I can actually print it as a PDF. So let me briefly do that. Okay, so here is my formation record sheet for company A. This top portion, that is my formation counter stats for its movement, its jump, its transportation movement, TMM, tactics, morale, skill. And then the formation special abilities, again, those are going to be in the special rules for Strategic Battle Force in Interstellar Operations Manual. And then below that, I've got the box for the three units. So I have an Assault Lance, a Fire Lance, a Recon Lance. Uh, you'll see that it's got the armor value for each of those units, and then the damage value for the different ranges, short, medium, long, and then extended, if that applies. And then their skills. Uh, and then below, these don't come into play actually for Strategic Battle Force, but it gives you a breakdown of what's in those specific lances. So I've got an Assault Lance, Fire Lance, the Recon Lance. So that's your three lances that make up your formation. And um, I'll do the same also for the other two uh, formations that I'll print up. So you just keep these while you're playing the game and you refer to them. Obviously, it's much bigger, and if I really wanted to, I could really just, you know, cut out the top two boxes so I'm not taking up loads of space on the table because these other boxes aren't really necessary. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling on about it, but it's kind of up to you how you want to play it.
Okay, so here's the example of play that I've got set up. I have a clan force on the south consisting of I'm using Battleforce tokens, and these are the Battleforce tokens that you can purchase on their website. You can use Mechs too, but what I'm using are just the Battleforce tokens because they're a little easier to stack when the formations uh, come in contact with each other. So, anyways, I have a clan formation that's a heavy mech formation, a medium mech formation, and another heavy mech formation. The inner sphere up north, I've got 3 formations. So I've got all 3 are medium mech formations, and they're all protecting an objective up north, as you can see. So in a typical scenario, you may have more formations, maybe there's more on one side. So, it's whatever you want the scenario to be. But for this example, I just have a very basic example of play that I'm going to use. Now, each formation has its own separate printed sheet. So I went ahead and printed these from MegaMek. You can also fill out a blank sheet yourself and go through the whole calculations of all of the mechs that you're going to be using. The only 2 boxes that I'm really concerned about when playing Strategic Battleforce is this top box, which has the formations, all of its stats, so its movements, TMM, tactics, etc. And then underneath the bottom is a list of all of the units, and the units a unit is either a lance, a star, or a level 2, depending on what faction you're playing. So this formation has 3 units. So the units are an assault lance, a fire lance, and a recon lance. And every formation is different. So that was an inner sphere sheet. And a second sheet for another formation consists of 3 other units. So there's a command lance, a striker lance, a battle lance, and they have their own stats. And that formation has its own stats. So that's what the setup is so far. So moving forward, I'll be referencing each of those sheets the same way that you would a battle mech in Battletech or in Alpha Strike. So the game is somewhat similar, but I'm dealing with a much grander scale of playing this out on the battlefield. So the first phase, the first step in a turn is going to be doing the initiative roll. So I'm going to go ahead and roll for Inner Sphere. They rolled an 11, which looks good. The clans roll a 9. So the Inner Sphere has the initiative. They're going to opt that the clans go ahead and move first, and it will alternate back and forth until movement is complete. So, and some things will happen during the movement phase, which I'll point out. So clans are going to decide to move first. They're going to go ahead and decide to move this heavy mech formation. Okay, so what I'd be doing is pulling up their sheet and referencing their stat movement. And for that particular formation, they have a movement value of 6. The map is pretty simple, so it's contact is going to occur almost immediately. So they're going to go 1, 2, 3, and I've already got contact. Okay. Both sides right at this point are moving on to the next step. Well, at least for these 2 formations. I'll worry about these 2 right now. I'll worry about movement later with these other groups. But to give you an example, now they're going to roll for an engagement control. So what I'm going to do now is refer to the engagement control roll modifiers table, because I'm going to be taking their tactics stats from each of those formations. I'm going to roll the dice and see what the margin of success is. Whoever has the margin of success will have an engagement control, and I'll denote that by placing an engagement counter. I printed these counters myself. It doesn't come with interstellar operations for Strategic Battleforce, so it does mention it in the rules, so you're going to have to use something. I just made these for quick reference, and I'll kind of explain how I use those. So anyways, what I'm going to do is roll for engagement control when these 2 forces come in contact with each other. So what is engagement control again? It is whoever is going to have the upper hand in this fight that takes place in this hex between these 2 formations. So I'm going to go ahead and start with seeing what that is for the clan formation. Okay, so I'm going to take their tactics value, and the tactics value for that formation is 3. And I'm going to refer to the engagement control table to see if there's anything that might apply that modifies the dice roll. And it looks like it's a pretty standard engagement. There could be situations that apply, such as a forced engagement, an overrun, or an evade. There may be an instance where this clan may want to evade this whole formation. However, there's a -3 to that dice roll, which is going to make it a little harder. But I'm going to decide that they're going to engage this inner sphere formation from the get-go. They're going to try to whittle them down, take out some mechs, and maybe force them to flee without having to totally destroy them. So I'm going to take their tactics roll, or their tactics value, which is 3, and I'm going to roll. So I got a 3. Actually, that is not a good roll. So I have a 3 -3, which is a 0. So I'm going to put a 6 to indicate that that's a 0. So already that's not good. Inner sphere, that formation, and I'm going to refer to their sheet, has a tactics value of 4. So whatever I roll, -4. So 5 -4 is 1. And inner sphere barely gets the engagement control for this battle. And I'll explain what that means. So I'm going to denote that by placing this inner sphere formation on top. They have engagement control, and I'm going to say put this token to indicate that they are now engaged. They are engaged in a fight. They're locked for right now. Okay. So now what? What do I do now? The inner sphere has the upper hand. Now they get to decide at what range they're going to be using to finish or to start this combat. So they can decide if they're going to be using all of their lances short range values, their medium values, or their long range values. And how do I know which one is a good one to use? I'm going to be looking at that formation sheet for that particular formation, and I'll bring that up. I'm going to go with, let's keep it at a distance of medium. Okay, so I'm going to put an M token to indicate that this whole group is going to be fighting at medium range. Okay, so now I've got, let's say, we're done with this hex for now. I'm going to go ahead and move for the inner sphere because it's their turn for movement. I'm going to have this formation move back into the light woods. Maybe they'll get some cover. That might be a good thing for them. And the clan is now going to be moving. So I'm going to be moving this formation. And their movement value is going to be 6 also. And everything's pretty close, so they should have no problem getting there. So they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 because of the woods. So they get to go in there. But they're going to be fighting in some wood formations that may benefit the inner sphere. So I'm going to go through the same process again. Who's going to have engagement control in this situation. So I'm going to refer to their sheets again. So this clan formation has a tactics value of 3. I'm going to roll the dice. And that's a good roll. So 10 - 3 is 7. So I'm going to mark just 7 so I can refer to that. And the inner sphere formation has a tactics value of 5. Not as good. So let's see what they can do. They rolled a 4. So it was very poor. It looks like the clans are going to have the upper hand in this engagement. And they're going to decide to go full force at short range. Okay, their stats are, according to their formation sheet, are just a little bit better than the inner sphere's stats. So they're going to go full force at short range in those woods. Okay, and so then it goes on to the next formation. They're up here on a hill, and they're going to stay put. You're probably wondering why I'm not having them engage in none of these other formations. The reason why is because you can only have one formation, one friendly formation, and one enemy formation in one hex. The only rule to having another friendly formation is that it has to be infantry. But that's not the case. So we've only got 1 for 1 in each of these hexes. So this inner sphere formation is going to stay put. It's going to stay on top of the hill. And this clan formation is going to go ahead and move. And their movement value is, refer to their formation sheet, is, it is 5. So we're looking at 1, 2, they're going to go up the hill, 3, 4, and they're still going to be able to go there. Actually, they're not going to go up. Maybe they're going to try to flank. So they're going to go here, 5. That's all they're going to do. So we're done with all of the movement phase right now. There were other opportunities as far as moving around, but there's a lot of strategy involved in this, the same that you would see in classic Battletech or Alpha Strike. So we're going to go on to the next phase, which is our combat phase. So this is kind of what we've been looking forward to kind of play this out. So let's go ahead. We're going to do just this one hex to kind of give you the example of what all of this looks like. Okay. Pull these out so you can see. It's at medium range. We have the 2 formations fighting in this one hex. Again, one hex represents about half a kilometer, 500 meters. And we're going to go ahead and determine what the dice roll is in order for there to be a hit. And we do this for each unit in that formation, for each lance in that formation. So I'm going to refer to that formation sheet. I'm just taking a look at it, see what we have here at medium range. And I'm going to start. Okay, so the process of figuring out the 2-hit number is very similar to Alpha Strike's Sator. This is all actually, Alpha Strike is actually based off of some Battleforce stats and information. So you're going to see a lot of similarities. So I'm going to take the skill of the formation. So we've got our inner sphere formation that has a skill of 4. So we've got 4. And then the TMM of the enemy formation, which is, and I'm going to refer to their sheet, their TMM is 2. So we've got 4 plus 2. And any other situation, so they're in open terrain, so there's going to be no modifiers for this to-hit modifier. And actually, I'll bring up the to-hit modifier table so you can take a look. There's range, there's attack modifiers, target modifiers, terrain modifiers. So this one looks pretty straightforward from the get-go. And then, so we're going to look at other as 0. And then the range. Now, range is interesting. It's abstract inside this hex. We're not counting range from the number of hexes because all of the combat is taking place inside here. And again, inner sphere chose a medium range. So for short range, it's +0. For medium range, it's +1. And long range is +2. Extreme range, if that applies, would be +3. And indirect fire would be an additional +1 modifier. So we're looking at a medium range for +1. Okay, so our 2-hit modifier is 7. Okay, and you're going to take a look. I'll bring up the formation sheet for that inner sphere formation that's attacking. I have 3 units here. I have the command lance, the fire lance, and the recon lance. I'm going to be rolling for each of these. Okay, so let's roll for the command lance. I've got a 10, so that was a hit. That was perfect. And at medium range, that does 4 damage. So now we've got 4 damage we want to apply, or we need to apply somewhere. So applying the damage, there are some rules, but the rules also mention a simplified damage for faster damage resolution. I like to go with this. This is just my personal preference when I play Strategic Battleforce, but you can follow along the Strategic Battleforce rules that are a little more involved in determining which enemy unit is being attacked in this enemy formation. So let's take a look at the clan formation, okay, for the Heavy Mech 2 here. We have Alpha Assault Star and we have Bravo Assault Star. So we have 2 units that can be attacked. For simplified damage, what I do is I roll for chance. So 1 through 3 for the Alpha Assault Star, or 4 through 6 for the Bravo Assault Star. So let's see what I'm going to roll. I rolled a 4, so the Bravo Assault Star is going to take 4 damage. So they go from 15 to 11. So I just marked that down on their sheet. There are no bubbles like in Alpha Strike. There are no 15 bubbles for Bravo Assault Star. So just for some simplicity, I just cross out 15 and I mark 11. Okay. And now we need to attack for the other 2 lances. So Fire Lance also needs a 7. They rolled a 6, so they missed. And Recon Lance is going to attack. They also need a 7. They rolled a 3. Okay, so they missed. Those 2 other units missed, but Command Lance was able to get some hits off of that formation, that enemy clan formation. Okay. Oh, and one more note I forgot is that whoever has the engagement control, which is the inner sphere formation, applies 1 additional damage. So actually, they don't take 4 damage, they take 5 damage. Okay. And the reason why is because during engagement control, it's kind of like an abstract maneuvering within that hex to indicate that the inner sphere formation has the upper hand as far as maneuvering and doing damage. Okay, so the formation is done attacking. So what can the clans do? Now it's their turn to attack in this formation. They might be able to get some hits off. The problem with that, with the clan, is that they're not going to be doing their full damage. So the 2 formations at medium range, the 2 units of that clan formation at medium range do 9 points of damage, and the other one does 7 points of damage. They're not doing the full damage. I am actually going to have their damage rounded normally. So it looks like Alpha Assault Star won't do 9 damage, it'll do 5 damage. And Bravo Assault Star won't do 7 damage, it will do 4 damage. Okay, because we're rounding normally as per the rules in Strategic Battleforce. Which is still good. I mean, that damage is still pretty good at medium range. Obviously, if that clan had the upper hand, they'd be doing the full might of their attack strength at medium range. So anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at their 2 hit number that they need. So the formation, we're going with Sator again. Sator, skill, attack, target, other, range, similar to Alpha Strike. So that skill is going to be 3. That's a good number. The attack is going to be, let's take a look at what that number is. The TMM is going to be, for that enemy inner sphere formation, is 2. Okay. And other is 0, because there's no other modifiers that apply, especially the terrain. And then the range, we're still at medium. They are all locked at medium range, so we're looking at +1. Okay, so we're looking at a 2-hit number of 6. A little bit better for the clan because of their skill level. So let's roll for Alpha Assault Star to see if they're able to get a hit. They rolled a 7, so they got a hit. Okay, they're going to be doing that. Alpha Assault Star is going to do 5 damage to, and I'm going to roll randomly to see which inner sphere unit is hit. And it looks like Recon Lance is taking 5 damage. So they go from 9 armor to 4. So they took quite a beating just on that one attack alone. And then I'm going to be rolling for the other unit in that clan formation, Bravo Assault Star. Let's see, they need a 6. And I rolled an 8, so they got it. So that other unit is going to be doing damage, and they're going to be doing 4 damage. And 4 damage will be applied, I'm going to roll randomly, to the command lance in the inner sphere formation. So we're going from 12 armor down to 8. Okay. So nobody was destroyed. Nobody took a beating. Nothing severely. They traded some shots at medium range. And that was just within the first turn. They may be locked later on for continued combat. And I'll explain what that means, because there is an opportunity that one formation may decide to leave the combat, or they may decide to just continue their fight into the next turn. And again, each turn represents about 3 minutes of real time. Okay. So now what? We can continue to roll for the next combat. I think I've shown enough, actually, because what I'd like to do is tell you what would further happen into the next phase for this particular these two formations that are engaged in the combat. Okay. So we move on to the next step, where that would be rolling for critical hits. So units that have less than half of its starting armor value, rounding up, that unit is considered damaged and begins taking critical hits from the critical hit table. Okay, so let's take a look at that formation, that inner sphere formation. Their Recon Lance took a considerable amount of damage. They went from 9 armor down to 4 armor. So they have lost their more than half of their starting armor value. So they're going to be taking some critical hits. Critical hits is somewhat similar to classic Battletech, and that you would roll to see what the effects would be. So why don't I bring that up? Here's the critical hit table, and I'm going to roll 2 dice. I rolled a 7. So the targeting damage, so this is for the future, and future attacks, the targeting damage is +1 to hit modifiers to all attacks. Okay, so I'm going to make a note of that on the sheet, that particular lance has to now have a +1 to hit modifier to all of their attacks, because they've started taking critical hits. They're the ones that took the most damage of what was from that last battle. Okay, but it doesn't stop there. Okay, at the end of the round, all of the damage takes effect. Just as you would see in regular classic Battletech and Alpha Strike. And the next step is there would be a morale check. So there are instances when you would need to check the morale of your formation because of certain situations that occurred during the battle. Okay, so here's the morale check table, and there is a target number modifier that you need to roll. Okay, so what is morale, right? After the battle, pilots are just, they see things that affected them. Maybe they're scattering. They saw a friendly unit just take too much damage, which just did happen. Okay, And then depending if they're able to meet the morale roll, they're okay. If they do not meet the morale roll, they start taking damage effects. And that may happen here. And we'll go ahead and roll for that and see what happens. So what is the morale number that we're looking for? So for this situation, it looks like only the inner sphere formation is only going to be doing a morale check. Because that recon lance unit took more than 50% damage, and that's one of the requirements for this to happen. So in order to do a morale check, a formation has to have suffered either crippling damage, or a unit suffered has its armor value reduced to 50% or less. That did happen to the recon lance. A unit in a formation is destroyed. No, that didn't happen. And there are a variety of other criteria that this must happen. So what's the morale value? We need to roll for that number. So for this formation, the morale value is 7. So how does the number 7 come into play? It's pretty simple. You just take their skill value, which is 4, and you just add 3 to that, and that's your morale value. So 7. So our base number is 7, and looking at the morale check table, we can see that each unit in formation at 50% or less armor, and this is cumulative. So this is only one unit. So now our number goes from 7 to 8. And looking down the list, it doesn't look like anything else applies, but these are things to keep in mind as you're checking the morale check table. Okay, so anyways, I need an 8. I need an 8 for the formation to pass its morale check. And they rolled a 9. Okay, so they're okay. They were still a little stunned by what they saw happen to that recon lance, taking all that damage, but their morale passed. They can get through this. They can get into the next turn phase of combat, possibly. So what if they had failed? Let's say that they failed this situation. Okay, what happens is I would apply a combat condition, which would be shaken. Okay, so shaken units, they would have some penalties applied to them. If it happens again, then they go to broken, and then if it goes from broken to worse, it would go to routed. So there are at least 3 steps that would occur to that formation if things went from bad to worse. So even though a formation not be completely destroyed, maybe they're just, their mechs are still in fighting condition, but their pilots as a formation may decide, hey, we just can't do this anymore. We got to back out of here. We got to go hide. We got to be out of line of sight. And as per the rules, we would have to go and recover our morale. And there's a different set of rules for that. So yeah, that's basically it as far as the combat phase. And during the end phase, there's something called an ending engagements. So I'm going to focus just on these two. I won't worry about these other formations right now. But as a whole, this is all what would happen to every formation engaged in combat. That's in an engaged combat. So formations engaged in combat this turn can decide to break off the engagement and are resolved separately with turns initiative winner choosing the order. Okay. So I may have a situation here where Inner Sphere just says, you know what, I don't want to engage anymore. I don't want to engage in this combat anymore. And Clan goes back to Clan and they say, well, you know what, no, we are going to engage. Okay. I'm locking you in, you can't escape. Okay. Alternatively, the Clan formation may say, you know what, okay, well, that I agree with that, and then during the next movement phase, you're free to start moving if it's your turn to move. Okay, why would that happen, though? Perhaps it would be the Clan's turn movement in the next turn, and they would leave the engagement, and they can start moving towards the objective. Okay. probably a more strategic move would be for the inner sphere to say, no, we are definitely staying engaged. I want you pinned, even if it means I'm losing more mechs and units in the next turn. I have to keep you pinned here so that you don't move towards that objective. So strategic battle force has these separate rules in the end phase as far as ending the engagement. There's also an optional rule for forced withdrawal. So if units start taking a certain amount of damage, the formation itself has to leave. So that may sound familiar from classic Battletech. And but yeah, that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. I think that's kind of the meat of the combat phase that's really separates itself from some of the other Battletech gaming systems. You're really just in combat in one hex, and you're playing it out over a series of turns. There you may find that these formations kind of have locked front lines, and there isn't a whole lot of movement until there's breakthrough, and then maybe another line, defense line starts forming. So it plays very much like a, historical war games that you may have played. I'm trying to think of some of the old school war games that have hundreds of chits on the table, and you're kind of slogging it out. So this is much more like that, and you're getting more of that. I'm a general in this combat, this battlefield type of situation, rather than I'm leading a lance of mechs, and combat's going to be quick. There's a lot of maneuvering. I've got fast mechs moving all over the place trying to get some pot shots, or I've got heavy mechs or missile boats getting shots from across the way. This is definitely a more contained battlefield that takes place over turns. So, but yeah, that's one example. That's my example of play of how strategic battle force works.
Okay, so now that we have a sequence example of strategic battle force shown, how practical is it really to play strategic battle force? You know that it's in the manual for interstellar operations, and it has its own section, right? Uh, so, and it goes into it some length. There are some questions. I've talked with some others about strategic battle force, and there's some clarifications that we've kind of gone through, and one of the forums also talks about it. But what does that mean exactly as far as practically being able to play strategic battle force? We kind of have two options. You can create your own forces, like I had shown, uh, pencil and paper. You can use MegaMek to quickly generate them, which is what I prefer. And you just create your own scenarios, the same way you would do in any Battletech game. There is something that's a practical setup as far as battle force, strategic battle force, and it's kind of a hidden gem. You kind of have I had to do a little searching. If you've purchased the BattleTech Battle of Tukayyid source book, it talks about all of the battles that take place with Comstar and the clans, and you can play them out in classic BattleTech or Alpha Strike. And then there's one addition to that source book. It is the supplement, and it's a PDF. And so, what does the PDF give you, right? So when I bought it, I was able to see that it expands the region terrain. You're rolling with additional terrain that you might have for maps. It expands the number of or the types of mechs that you have available while you're playing. But then on page 14 of that 310 page supplement, which is a great supplement, on page 14 it has something called strategic battles. And if you've gone through this supplement, uh, you probably just kind of quickly looked through it and thought, okay, well, I know that it's tied in with interstellar operations, and it definitely is. You use Interstellar Operations Manual, to play Strategic Battle Force Battle of Tukayyid grand scale battles that take place. So this was a really neat addition to the Battle of Tukayyid, that you can play not just classic BattleTech and Alpha Strike, but now you can play some of these strategic battles. And the neat thing is that the scenarios are designed. They come with maps. They tell you what formations are for each force of any of the clans and Comstar, the victory conditions of each. Just like you would see in any BattleTech scenario. So it looks like a lot of care and effort was definitely put into adding strategic battle force into this supplement. You get numerous battles that take place, and you're playing them out on a much grander scale, which I think is really neat. And the other thing too is that it provides some strategic battle force formation sheets that you can create on your own for Comstar, for the clans, and it also has specific formation record sheets of those specific scenarios that come included in this supplement. And there's a lot of them. There's a bunch that you're pulling from, and you can play this on the table. Um, the the supplement does come with the maps. So my only one gripe with the maps was that they are, um, for me at least, they weren't cost effective to print. I had to kind of scale them in Photoshop and then print them, and took a little bit of fiddling to get them to the right scale of what I wanted to play um, strategic battle force for the Battle of Tukayyid. I went ahead and played a couple of battles, which played out really well. I actually kind of liked it. It kind of gave me I think I played the Battle of, let's see, Dinju Pass. So I was playing on this map. The Looks like the Comstar had, oh God, there probably are about 15 or so formations, and the looks like Jaguar had about 6 or 7, but they were a much more powerful force as they were moving along to meet their objective. The battle that I played just with myself, Comstar barely won the battle. There were a lot of mechs that were lost, but it played true to like how the lore portrays how the battle took place with some of these, and there are a bunch more that you can play. So there is a practical way of playing it. This isn't really out of the box. You still need tokens for the formations. Again, you can use the Battleforce tokens, the Battleforce pack that you can purchase, and you can also uh, I had to create my condition tokens, for like the range uh, and battle conditions, like if they're shaken or broken, things like that. So I had to make those. So there was a little bit effort on my part to kind of to complete the box set, so to say. So it's not really out of the box, but it gives you enough materials that you can work with. But there was one thing that I kind of took it a little step further in order for me to play this, that on a little more practical sense, and that was playing it on Tabletop Simulator. So what I did was I took the map and made a map resource. I created the tokens, and I even put the stats. As you can see here, I put them on the tokens so it's easier for reference. And I brought those tokens that I had made for the physical tabletop and brought them in for Tabletop Simulator. It's a little bit easier to play. I don't have to worry about trying to print the map to scale again, because the good high quality maps that come with the Battle of Tukayyid supplement, they're really nice, but my problem was printing multiple sheets and finding a good printer and using a lot of ink. It was actually, for me, it wasn't cost effective to print it. It'd be great if Catalyst was able to print these supplement maps for Strategic Battle Force. I don't know if there's really um, a, um, a desire from the community to have that, but you just kind of take what you can. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of my idea and I'm still kind of working on these, is creating all of the scenarios from that Battle of Tukayyid supplement for Strategic Battle Force, and creating everything to quickly play on the go from that pack, and then just kind of playing it that way. Again, I could print them out, and I'd love to print them out, all of the maps, but right now it's just I find it a little easier to kind of set it up this way. So yeah, my final thoughts on Interstellar Operations Battle Force Strategic Battle Force game mode is I really find it interesting. I really liked the idea of playing, multiple armies, formations, duking it out. You're sitting in a headquarters, you're the general, you're not commanding any mechs yourself, but you're giving the shots, all of the orders at a much grander scale. You're seeing, from turn to turn, these lances just taking losses, or inflicting damage on other lances or stars, and wiping out other formations, inevitably to uh, get to that victory condition that they need to get. So, and it's very abstract. So uh, you're not you're not seeing limbs break off, um, as I'd mentioned before. You're not seeing the kind of the grittiness up close of what's happening. You're on the map. You're taking a look and seeing what's going on. The rules, some portions of it are pretty straightforward. Again, there were some clarifications that I needed that were in the manual, and again, I talked to a few people about it on the forums to get those clarifications. Uh, this game may not be for everybody. You're not, it's not part of the hobby of, you're picking up a mech and you're painting it, and this is your specific force. You get that feel for it when you start painting your lances, and you know that these are the guys that are going into battle. It's hard to probably get that idea from a counter that that represents all of the lances that are taking part of it. It's definitely not as visually as appealing as a close-up BattleTech Alpha Strike match, but I feel like um, the satisfaction is given to you in a different way. So again, the game may not be for everybody. It'd be interesting to actually play this game, if and then breaking it down so that when a formation comes in contact with another formation, you can actually duke it out on the table in classic BattleTech or an Alpha Strike. There doesn't seem to be a rule set for that conversion, so that you can kind of go down to that scale, and then coming back to the Strategic Battle Force. I guess you could kind of house rule it your own way in order to kind of streamline that process of going through the battle. But I liked it. The other thing too was that it would be really nice if there was a boxed version of the game. It'd be nice if the Battle of Tukayyid supplemental took all of those maps and the counters, the condition markers, dice, sheets, everything. It'd be nice if there was a box set of this game, actually. Again, I don't know if there really is a call for that from the community to play something quite at this scale. The only other time that something like that happened was with the old Battle Force from, I found it on Board Game Geek. Guy, what year was this? This was and this FASA was the publisher, so it kind of gives you an idea of how long ago that this was. 1987. Okay, so Battle Force is not Strategic Battle Force, but it's at another scale of Battle Force. Um, so this is, this is another video for another day. But it'd be nice if it had come like kind of like a box set with all of the maps for Strategic Battle Force, your counters, your sheets, everything like that. But this is something completely different. But If Catalyst had done something like this, I definitely would pick it up. Does that mean the rest of the community would pick it up? Probably not. I think this is for a select few who really find this appealing. That takes place in the Battleforce universe. Uh, sorry, Battletech universe. But I could be wrong. Catalyst has tried making, or they did make Encounters BattleTech, your push your luck kind of dice rolling game, which I found really interesting, and I enjoyed it. I like playing with it. It was a quick game. Just pop it out. Not that Strategic Battle Force is a quick game, but it was something that was experimented with and worked down the line. And it looks like there's another game that's coming out that's takes place with the houses fighting each other. So I don't know. Maybe there is a call for something like that. It really just depends on what people want. So at the end of the day, this is Strategic Battle Force. Kind of give you an idea of what the game looks like. That's inside the BattleTech Interstellar Operations and how you can access it. I wouldn't say it's super accessible because you kind of need to know uh, where you can uh, pull material that's already out there, such as that uh, the Battle of Tukayyid supplemental and record sheets, how you can generate your forces with MegaMek. So you kind of have to learn to kind of piece these together. And I hope this video does that for you if you are interested in going down this route with strategic Battle Force, and seeing if you like it. So anyways, have a good day and thanks for watching.